Welcome to the Campbell Museums. A mundane object like a campaign button has many stories it can tell. In this video, I explore just a few of these stories. Think of this video as the abridged history behind campaign buttons. This video is part of our What's in the Box series, where I pull a box from storage and see what we find inside. So check out the box number 4 playlist for more. Please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to show us some love. You can also support the Campbell Museums by becoming a member. Today, Americans have a multitude of ways to advertise their political leanings, from social media to bumper stickers to yard signs or even flags. But one of the oldest ways to express political pride was to wear it right on your body with a campaign button. Campaign buttons are born from American politics, and while small in size, they are the impetus of the campaign slogans and bold graphics that are fundamental to today's campaigns. Let's explore. Colonial America was ruled by a monarchy. Being ordained by God to lead the country meant that monarchs didn't need pesky political campaigns and elections to prove their worth to their citizens. On the flip side, it also meant that citizens had limited say in how their lives were governed. Then, the American Revolution brought democracy to its citizens, giving them a voice in their government. Well, technically speaking, there were lots of caveats that limited who could actually vote. Generally speaking, American citizens were now able to vote for their political representatives, which meant that politicians had to campaign to earn those votes. But unlike the years-long slog of never-ending campaigning that we are accustomed to today, political campaigns were much more low-key. No flashy banners, no swag, no campaign commercials. One plus side to having no radio, TV, or internet, I suppose. In fact, early on it was considered inappropriate for the candidate to directly ask for votes. Thus, it was up to local supporters to organize campaign events like parades and stump speeches to speak on behalf of the candidate. Candidates and their supporters would also publish their platforms in newspapers and pamphlets for citizens to read. And we can't forget political cartoons. We start to see some political swag appear in the first few presidential inaugurations. These events were commemorated with items including metal coins and buttons. But these trinkets were all celebrations of the current leadership. They were not used during the campaign process to garner support for a candidate. It wasn't until 1824 that we see the first campaign giveaways, when Andrew Jackson distributed items like small medals for collars and lapels. His medals provided citizens with a tangible and wearable object to advertise their support for him. During the 1840 campaign between William Henry Harrison and Martin Van Buren, we see the first use of consistent imagery associated with a candidate, namely Harrison's log cabin campaign. Harrison and his running mate John Tyler also brought a campaign first with what is considered to be the first slogan for a presidential candidate, with Tippecanoe and Tyler too. It's hard to know for certain if these campaign buttons and trinkets with slogans and imagery worked, but Harrison and Tyler did defeat Van Buren by 145,000 popular votes and captured 80% of the electoral votes. After the 1840 election, it was clear that political campaign ephemera now had a specific aim: to spread campaign propaganda. Printed platforms and pamphlets where political ideas were laid out were reduced to their ultimate economy through the one-line slogan. And now, citizens could wear these slogans for all to see. "1896 was the year that buttons took on the form we see today, the celluloid pinback button. As always, the Industrial Revolution had to leave its mark. Celluloid, which we explore in a previous video that you can check out, was one of those transformative Industrial Revolution inventions that allowed for the production of fast and cheap plastic products, one of these products being the campaign button. Celluloid buttons have a metal base with paper placed over it. Then the entire surface is covered in celluloid. The 1896 presidential candidates William McKinley and William Jennings Bryan immediately saw the appeal of these celluloid buttons, and they were mass-produced for each campaign. During the 1920 election, a new technology was introduced to campaign buttons, the tin plate offset lithography process, which allowed imagery to be applied directly to the metal surface of the button, making printing much more affordable. This leads us to the objects in our box. The year is 1940. The United States has been struggling to rebuild the economy after the Great Depression, and a global war is waging with the United States hesitant to join the fight. Franklin D. Roosevelt is up for his third election, and businessman Wendell Willkie is taking him on. The 1940 election would have been tense. Were Americans happy with the New Deal and all the spending attached to it? Did Americans want the U.S. to enter the war? Did Americans support a president running for a third term? Franklin Roosevelt was a popular and powerful opponent for Republicans, and Republicans used campaign ephemera, including buttons, to fight. In fact, Willkie distributed over 1,000 different buttons to oppose Roosevelt. Just 100 years after the first campaign slogan appeared, we see the Willkie campaign investing heavily in the power of campaign buttons. This prolific use of buttons was made possible thanks to the lithography tint process mentioned earlier. This printing process, invented in 1920, meant that the designs and colors could be directly applied to the metal surface of the button. This technique allowed for millions of buttons to be produced quickly, often in rapid response to news items about President Franklin D. Roosevelt. That said, millions of buttons later, Franklin D. Roosevelt won his third term as U.S. President. It should be noted that buttons were not the only advertising medium for campaigns. A wide variety of political campaign materials have been employed to win the vote. From plates to cups to thimbles to pocket knives and even cigarettes, candidates have used swag to sway the undecided public to check their box on Election Day. That said, the campaign button is the most consistent and most iconic of them all, small yet impactful, worn on your body for all to see. From suffrage to civil rights to gay rights, the campaign button became central to garnering support for any political issue that appeared on a ballot. In the 1960s, thanks to the affordability of these buttons, we find citizens making their own, an easy and effective tool for grassroots political movements. Buttons, stickers, and songs are the sparkle and glitter of which our campaigns are made, though they have little substantive impact on a voter's ultimate decision at the polls. In the latter quarter of the 1900s, campaign buttons became less prolific, and campaigns were less likely to hand them out free of charge. Instead, campaign money was directed towards TV ads, branching out to the internet around the turn of the 21st century. Campaign buttons have been replaced by yard signs and social media engagement. The slogans and bold graphics are still there, but what was once proudly displayed on one's lapel is now blasted on one's social media feed. That said, when you do see a pin out in the wild, those few inches of circular space still provide a tangible reflection of the political climate and are likely to outlast fleeting social media posts. Mundane objects can contain big stories, and these campaign buttons had a lot to say. What other stories might they tell? Thanks for watching, and please consider supporting us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and becoming a member of the Campbell Museums.